So what we'll do is we'll come up with a deal here where we've got a bit of poster and we can start with the intro there. Okay, once again I'm Sven, that's Guy, and that's Cynthia. Yes, Nick?
Yes. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Yeah, the distribution, thank you for having us.
Pleasure.
Suppose I want to know about the botany and a bit about the business and about what happens.
I hear you. So, very great question. So, in our intro, we'll try and cover quite a lot of stuff, right? But then when we break into it all depends. If nobody cares about the business side, then I'll gladly join you guys with these guys. But I'm just saying we thought we'd give the opportunity to split up in case people wanted to be, you know, a bit more specific and deep dive. So we don't have to split into groups. It just makes it a little bit easier to walk around. Okay?
But it's up to you guys.
Yeah. We could. I mean, it all depends on your timing, right? So, but anyway, like I say, if we're not careful, we could talk all day. So we're going to try and limit what we say in the intro. But just a quick background of where we are. This is BrackenHurst. It's a 35-acre property. They're very, very conscientious about reforestation and about native species that don't only come from Kenya per se, but that are sort of on the red list. And there's a seed center here. There's the Center of Ecological Restoration. They're also headquartered here. There's quite a few different organizations headquartered here. And we decided to have our first farm under our new brand at BrackenHurst because of that cross-pollination of different backgrounds, right? And so this is our first farm under our brand. We have another pilot project in Limuru, which is on the slopes of Mount Kenya. That's at 200 meters higher than where we are now. We're at 2,200 meters above sea level here. We're also very close to Nairobi, which is our main market. And so what we've got here is 0.85 hectares under production. So our smallest farm by far. We have a second farm down in Limuru, which is about 600 meters lower than here on the other side of Nairobi.
That's why we wasn't in the conference.
Yes.
Because
We're planting.
working before the rains.
Exactly. So we have two main core farms around Nairobi, and we plan to have a farm, at least one nucleus farm in each agroecological zone of Kenya. The future farms will be a lot bigger than currently. In Limuru we have just under 4 hectares, here we have just under 1. So those will be our smallest farms. And yeah, as we continue the chat, I'll explain a bit more about our vision and what we're doing, but I just wanted to give an intro to where we are. We're quite lucky in Limuru too, because we have over 1,000 mils of rainfall. Just last night alone we had 70 mils. Wow. So very lucky here. The soils are good, the climate's good, but like any high altitude place, you're only limited to what you can grow, right? So anyway, before we move too much further, I thought we would go up to the board there, but just so you understand, the little field behind you was planted in November. That field, the difference between that field and this field, obviously it's a little bit smaller. This field behind us was planted exactly a year ago, a year and a week ago. Yeah, but the difference with the two fields is that is a purely indigenous field. This has non-natives in it as well, and we'll explain the importance of that as we go on. Okay, but in the meantime, guys, please. I thought I would just quickly introduce Forest Foods and myself. So I'm born and bred in Kenya. I have Dutch grandparents, but they moved here in the 50s. So I've grown up here my whole life. Guy and Cynthia are from Brazil. Guy spent quite a lot of time working in different African countries. Cynthia, this is her first year in Africa. She already speaks quite good Swahili and nearly perfect English from nothing, so I'm quite impressed with that. But yeah, we have a few other team members. One of them's here today, but the rest are not. We're a startup. We raised our first chunk of investment in December 2021, so just call it January 2022. So what you're really looking at is our first farm under the new brand. And just before we dive into sort of this wonderful poster here, I just wanted to highlight quickly the 3 main objectives of Forest Foods. Number 1 is to have a significant impact on reforestation. Since I was born, we've lost over 95% of our forest cover in Kenya. Unfortunately, I suppose, for us, there's not enough philanthropic money out there to reforest. Reforestation generally costs money. So we're creating models that are profitable, right, and that can be used across the different agroecological zones of Kenya. So I'm going to come back to that again, but I said to you earlier that we want to have some at least one nucleus farm in different agroecological zones of Kenya, so that we can make the mistakes before we roll them out with other people, right? So that's number one. Number two is to have a very positive impact on small and medium acreages across the country initially, and hopefully across the wider African region later on. Our focus right now is in Kenya, but is to make small and medium acreages profitable again, because I think everyone who, at least who's a Kenyan here, would probably agree with me that in the last 30 years our small and medium farms have only become smaller and smaller and smaller, and generally a bit less productive and a bit less productive.
Yeah.
So we want to have a positive impact there as well, and of course you can imagine on the social side, you know, teaching farmers, teaching landowners, teaching anyone really who's interested in learning about Syntrophic agroforestry how to do it, yeah, and to jump on board, right? Number three really is to give the market transparency, traceability, consistency, because that doesn't really exist. I think when I was a young boy, you know, you could quite happily buy veggies and fruits off the side of the road and you would know that they were grown safely. Can we still say that today?
No.
Exactly. So what's quite unique about Kenya, although it's such an advanced, in many senses, such an advanced economy and quite a developed African country, I must say, is that we still don't have this really consistent, traceable and transparent value chain when it comes to fresh produce. I'm very happy for people to disagree with me.
State anymore, right? So don't make any sense to continue to burn lands. We need to use the resource biomass and what we call the photosynthetic matrix, that is this accumulation, is gold for us, is biomass. So here we see when we start a system, we building a system, and remember we always say this, we don't have a recipe. Don't exist a recipe for this type of farming. We follow the concepts, is the most important thing. Because each farmer has a situation. Each farmer wants to produce something. If you are a coffee farmer, you don't need to leave coffee behind and start, oh, I will do the most diverse agroforest. No, you are still a coffee farmer. You can have your focus on coffee, right? So, what we normally say is, we building systems that have a future. We can observe in Kenya, and I worked in Mozambique and I passed it to other African countries. And people are planting cabbage for all life. You become in Muse and you still planting same thing. I think these have connection with the colonial time, colonial heritage. We have this in Brazil also. We was colonized by Portuguese. So this mentality to plant just one thing, right, is still here, still in our minds. Also the competition. Competition is in our behavior, it's not in nature, right? Where I think most part of you are Christians, right? Where is in the Bible, so God create a field of maize? You will not find. God create all the nature, different species. So, independent if you are organic or conventional, you stay in these steps, right? So what I want to say is, organic is great. If you can move for organic, this transition is very important. Very, very important. But we can do more, much more, right? If you use the mechanism forest to move the mechanism of food production. We have the tools to do this, we have the knowledge. You just need to learn with the mistakes. That's why for me, and me and Cynthia, we are very proud to be Brazilians, but it's not about just like, I'm a Brazilian, but it's because Brazil has the mistakes. Mistakes, right? So when you have a system, say, the movement of energy, how we build a system, and each farmer we have their protagonist, is like we use this principle, stratification, succession, is the main concept, right? We have many other things. For us, important is good practice. If we can apply good practice, we are doing great. You don't need to do the best agroforest. You need to have good practice. 4 dimensions, that is the time. Right? Time rules everything. So that's why we have more than 100% of occupation of levels. If you go to, I don't want to say bad, diversity of species that make a forest. We coming from the country of the forest. Let's see if you continue having our forest. But I mean, what I want to say is what makes the forest is also the levels, the occupation of levels and time, right? So that's why we have more occupation than 2 dimensions by Ernest. Placenta is like the mama when she's pregnant, right? Placenta is what gives the conditions for next steps. So when you're building a system, we look for the future. We don't have just food for tomorrow. I know people are keen to have food for tomorrow, but we also have the fruits, the nuts, the timber, the indigenous. It's very important because we saw in Brazil for indigenous trees, but the farmers, they don't want. It's very tough to convince them because they think, this tree will take so long to give money back. Or how I will plant these trees in my production area. It's a small area that I have to produce cabbage and vegetables. So that's why we can create systems that integrate everything together, right? Indigenous, exotics, fruits. A lot of people say about exotics, but it's about management. It's how we management them, because they have a power. We can use this power to help us, right? Like, who here don't eat broccoli? Most part of us eat many vegetables that is not local, from other place, like avocados and mangoes. They are not from here, but they are integrating our culture. So depends how we use them. So if they have a power, let's use them properly, right? Some question about this, guys, please. Stop
Is agroforestry organic by default or not per se?
Depends. In our case, we are organic.
Yeah.
But we normally say we go forward on than organic because it's possible, right?
Okay.
But in some projects in Brazil, I saw when big farmers especially, they are in this transition, you know, session that this area is, how you can plant any tree there. You can't. You need to use the potential of grasses, right? Savannic elements. And we are blessed. We are in the heart of grass, right? We have many types of grasses. The potential of biomass to maximize this process, right? How is the ground of the forest? It's covered. It's the skin of the soils, right? If you go to drylands, it's uncovered. But if you use the potential of some plants to make this photosynthetic matrix, to bring green again, and pruning, and reshoot again, and pruning, we are cover our soils. And even if these places don't have umvua, don't have rain, you have the humidity. Umvua, rain is in the air, right? So it's how you capture this water. Please.
Thank you. When I listen to you, you sound to be very honest. You sound to be genuine.
Thank you.
Please answer my question. In Syntrophics, do these plants fight for themselves and treat themselves? or you do assisted kind of support?
This is very good question. We, like humankind, we forget that we are part of intelligent system. We think we are the intelligent, the clever ones, but we are part of intelligent system. So in these systems we are integrate. A lot of projects in Brazil also, they for sure has a very serious work to understand the forest's behavior in each agroecological zone. We plant the trees and we leave. We close and humans are not allowed. But time is ticking. We don't have time, you know? If it was 20 years ago, maybe. But in these days, we don't have time. I respect this type of project a lot. I support. But I think we can do more to maximize process. And we can see this in Brazil happen, right? So that reforestation that will take many years, we can maximize the process. How? Use the power of the plants, the power of succession.
I think you've not answered.
No, I think it's
So when you have a system like that, in one stage, in the beginning is a challenge. In the beginning is a challenge. But because you worked with the forest mechanism, the idea is this system grows and will be in balance. Because plants, in certain step of this process, they start to produce the secondary metabolism. What is the secondary metabolism? Almost all the plants have this. They start to produce their own defensives when they are in balance. Another point, for example, crickets, they attacked the maize plantations, right? The insects. If you look with reason, you see that just small birds can come in and stay in the maize, right? So these crickets don't have predators. They are free to attack that plantation. But when you have a system with trees, biggest birds can come in. Your problem has a solution. The animals are making the system in balance, right?
So you lose some, you stay with some.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm saying you can use organic methods. Very simple. You can use the plants, organic defensives, but
Oh yeah.
you can use, but depends who is this farmer, because some people don't have conditions. Like in Brazil, organic defensives can be very expensive. It's just for a few ones. It's very difficult to buy.
Maybe I can also help answer. So I think when I first started these systems years ago, I was quite a big fan of using certain products that were available here that were botanical extracts. I found that after a while I stopped using them because I found that every production cycle problems get less and less. I then enrolled in a 2-year soil microbiology course and I started learning about what goes on underneath the ground. And
Yeah, remember what? The energy that moves like that also moves like that in the soil.
Okay.
So I now have a much richer understanding of what goes on underneath the soil, but you'll find that with crops the only reason they get sick is because they are weak. A strong crop very rarely gets a problem, right? And that's
Really?
because they've got the bio. So again, it doesn't matter what your religious beliefs are, but nature's been around. Rooted plants have been around for over 1 million years, so they've had 1 million years of time to figure out how to do this, right? And we came along thinking, oh, a plant needs this, a plant. It's kind of why I have a bit of a problem with the sort of conventional way of looking at soil analysis, right? And where they tell you, oh, you've got this, you don't have this, you don't have this. Really what you don't have is the biology to make it plant available. And so once you have the biology, everything becomes, well, everything becomes a lot easier, let me put it that way, right? Now, I'm not saying everyone has to follow a 2-year soil microbiology course. It's actually quite easy to learn how to use a very simple microscope and to start looking at your soil, to start looking at your compost, to understand, do you have the soil food web? And once you've got the soil food web, a lot of your problems go away. So I've learned, so to answer your question, yes, I used to use, occasionally I used botanical extracts. You know, for certain things you'd use a ginger extract, for other things you'd use a neem extract, this. I mean, there's hundreds of products out there. But I learned quite quickly that was a bit of a waste of time and money, because the following cycle I wasn't having that problem, or it was much less. The following cycle, nothing. So here we're on the 7th cycle of production, and you'll only find that anything sick in our system or looking tired is because we've realized this wasn't the right season to grow it. Remember, we've only been here for a year. So for an example, don't grow brassicas in the summer in this part of Kenya. Grow it in the winter. But we didn't know that until we had a year of the agricultural calendar under our belts, right? So anyway, I don't want to interrupt you guys, and I think Cynthia...
The name, sorry, and that you study a lot about how to make things work. I'm from Madagascar, and we are experimenting bushfire every year that destroy all the forest. Where can I find a bibliography to learn like you did in order to copy paste the system in Madagascar? Yeah.
Well, this is a good question. A lot of people find material, but because it's being developed in Brazil, a lot of these materials in Portuguese. But you can find articles that has translation, or you can translate. Many videos in the YouTube has also, like Sven invest in many trips to Brazil. That's why we met each other. And it's important to see, but I understand it's difficult to go there sometimes.
But that's why we're here.
Yeah, that's why we are here. Not to bring the same models or, like I say, recipes, but to bring the concept. I am social science, so in every place that I pass, the first question for the farmer is, what do you want to plant? And from this list, you help to create these systems, to understand, to learn, right? You have a question?
Yes, I will try in English. Do you think?
Yeah, we can talk about that very specifically, but maybe when we provide input, or turn up to... Was there one question about semi-arid and then another question about farming? They're very different ones.
Isso aqui dá pra falar do Ernest. Yeah, like in Europe, for example, Ernest is from Europe. So he works in the tropics, but he spends most part of his life thinking in system for Europe. You have projects in Portugal, you have projects in Germany. So adaptate for that places. When you go to dry areas, in Brazil is the place. Because Brazil is so big, it's such a continental country. The people ask, but Brazil is hot, huh? Can be, but can be very cold, can be very dry, can be high humidity, can be wet. So you have agroforest in so many places in Brazil, and you can see working without irrigation, without fertilizer in the dry lands, if you use the right plants.
Yeah,
But you can't be a plant racist.
Yeah.
We have two very dry biomes in Brazil, Caatinga and Cerrado. And in this place we have very adapted plants. So to know the biodiversity, the agroforestry zone that you are is very important. Because imagine, I can't bring one plant from the tropical forestry for these biomes. So I need to explore the potential for the plants, these roots plants for in this place, the indigenous plants. This is very important. And the first day, guys, I need to say it's a pleasure have you guys here, especially after this precious week talking about the solutions, trying to create better solutions for the agri-food system. I'm so proud to be there this week. Congratulations for everyone. And it's a pleasure also receive you guys here and have the opportunity to show what we are doing here in Limuru, talking about Tatu City in Ruiru also. And in the first day of this conference, we saw one video about some women that travel 12 kilometers to collect wood to make charcoals. So in these systems, we have everything that we need. We plant biomass, we are planting water, we are planting diversity, we are planting trees, and we are planting fruits.
Yeah.
So yeah, guys, here let me talk about the historical of this field and the second field, because we work with regenerative agriculture, we work with organic production, but we are proud to say that we work also with Syntrophic Agroforestry system. And when we started here one year ago, this land was just a soccer field. The soil was very compacted. The biology of the soil was limited. And when we talk about the ecological succession, we are not just talking about trees, about broccoli, about cabbage. We are talking about the soil, because in the soil is the place that the life starts. So we need to give conditions for the soils. If you want abundance, sorry. If you want,
Here, Bill, I got you something in case you want.
look,
There you go.
guys. This is the physical conditions and the chemical conditions. This is my life. So we are very proud to bring the abundance for the soil. If you need to harvest with abundance, we need to give abundance. If you want peace, we need to give peace.
Yeah, let me just express this,
Please.
Cynthia, because this is also part of Ernest's work, the social side. When you have systems of abundance, you have less conflicts, right? Because we have everything. The grass in your neighbor is not more green than yours, right? When you have abundance, the social conflicts decrease, right? This is part of his philosophy. I'm not saying that it's over. I'm saying that most part of the conflicts in Brazil especially is about land. It's about land, is about